Hey Stat Crew. So today I'm going to introduce you into some basic jump functions, as well as just kind of give you a layout of how we can use jump. So first off, this is our jump data set from the survey that you all took at the first day of class. And you can access it on your PolyLearn. So on your PolyLearn page under General, you have this jump class data winter 2019. And when you open it, you can only open it if you actually have the program installed. So if it's not on your laptop, it won't open up to this data set. Once you open up Jump, it should always kind of be there in your finals. So once you get that data set, once you don't have to keep going back to PolyLearn, it's always going to show up in your recent files. So going back to the data set here, we'll notice the rows represent each observation. So if you really wanted to, you can search and find your specific row if you remembered what you put for the survey. Again, everybody should be included in here if you decided to participate. The columns represents the different variables and the different questions that were asked during that survey. Right. On the left-hand side, it just gives you all the variable names, but what's nice about it is it gives symbols for different types of variables. So for instance, gender is a categorical nominal variable, and it gives a red bar chart. Grade, we've talked about this in class, we can think of this as a categorical ordinal variable, and it gives you a bar chart in order. Right? And the blue symbol represents quantitative variables for both discrete and continuous. So this is kind of just a general layout of the jump interface. And now what we're going to do is visually display data. Show you some kind of basic displays. So up at the top here are a bunch of different options where you can kind of mess around and do some fun things. We're going to be graphing. So if we go to Graph Builder, this allows us to kind of have its own unique interface for visually displaying data. We can display, since we're looking at categorical variables first, let's look at the variable relationship. So this is if you were or you were not in a relationship. And you can click that variable and drag it down to the x-axis. And it splits up the variable into students who said they were not and students who said they were in a relationship. Up at the top, it gives you a bunch of different options of how you can display this data. The one that we'll be using in this class for categorical variables mainly is a bar chart. And we see here there's that kind of bar chart. It brings about this little output box. So when we click it, it gives us this bar chart that we're after. There's some fun kind of things you could do to the side over here. Normally what I do is I label the chart by value. So click label by value and you'll notice the frequency pop up, where 84 students have identified as not being in a relationship, 57 had. If you ever want to kind of, you made a mistake, you can always hit undo, which will undo kind of the last thing you've done. And if you wanted to completely start over, you just hit start over, right? But when you finish with your graph, I'm just going to go back to what we just made. You can hit done, and this will be kind of the finished product. If you wanted to kind of copy this over to some other Word document or some document, you can right-click the graph and hit edit, and you can go to copy graph, right? So that's something you could, if you want to do this as well. Another way you can kind of, display that same categorical data is through the option Analyze Distribution. So when you go to Analyze Distribution, we will now hit or use rather another categorical variable. Maybe let's look at, I don't know, marijuana. So I'm going to double click marijuana, and we'll notice if I double click it, it goes to this output box. There's other ways to get it there. I mean, you can drag it to that output box, or you can select your variable and click the box you want it to go into. So I'll hit OK. All right. And what we'll see here is this box now, or that output box, created a graph, and it gave you some output of both the counts, the frequencies, and the relative frequencies, or the probabilities. Now, one thing that analyze distribution does is they always put all the bars together. I don't love that they do that with categorical nominal variables, like whether or not you smoke marijuana, yes or no kind of categories. The bars shouldn't be touching, and there's reasons why, and we'll talk about that in class. So I don't love how they display these bars because they're touching. But even still, it's nice because it does give these statistics here, and we'll be able to do some cool analyses in analyze distribution, right? So I'm going to kind of exit out of here, and I'm going to now look at quantitative variables. And how we're going to do that is we're going to go back to this analyze distribution output. So we go to analyze distribution and we insert a quantitative variable, maybe something like GPA, and we hit OK. We're left with different types of graphical displays because we're dealing with a different type of variable. Quantitative variables, if you remember, they deal with histograms and box plots. And what's cool about this is JMP gives you both a histogram and a box plot. It also gives you some important information over here regarding the statistics for this GPA data set. But this is a nice way to visually display data, at least basically, using JMP. We'll go over some different types of analyses and things from it, but this is kind of a basic breakdown of how to use JMP and how to display data.